Well, it's about 10%, but I think it's worth mentioning that in 2005, the total annual turnover of all our exchanges was 1.5 billion. And this year, 2011, we think we're on target for well over 4 billion contracts. So it's 10% of a much bigger number. On one of the slides, it said ETFs, 50% of people believe that they had the most growth potential. Volatility products and weekly expiration products, they got 38% each. Then we had index products with 25% and single stock products at 13%. I think that's, it's just interesting to see what people are anticipating. And we asked the people that were surveyed what types of strategies they were using, and 71% were following a directional hedging type strategy. 41% were looking at overwriting or premium generation, and 6% were looking at volatility-based strategies. I mean, what we did find quite useful was, stuff like a breakdown of who was using the market. So, for instance, it would be 58% hedge funds, 18% private wealth management, 15% prop trading, only 5% asset managers, and 4% others. I don't know who the others are. People with cats or something. I don't know. So. It was interesting to have more detailed meat put on the bones, let's put it that way, because you might say, oh well, that's great, isn't it, you should be targeting hedge funds. Well, actually no. I mean, you should be targeting hedge funds, but in addition you should be going for the vanilla asset managers, because that seems to be a low figure to me. Well, what the report did highlight was that education, we need to continue doing education. Well, that's fine. Nobody's ever going to say, "Oh, we've got enough education now. We know everything." But it did say that they found the market structure, perplexing. So I think we need to do some work there, and we can help to flesh out people's knowledge, referring specifically to asset managers. I think the mandate issue, just like you get in this country, it's the same deal in Europe. It might be an idea to use options, but they have to change their mandate. Having said that, when I first started in the business, if you mentioned bad words like futures or options, you were normally driven from the room of an asset manager with sticks and spears. That has changed. There is a much more open mind now, but there is still more education to be done. Yes, we put together plans to approach asset managers next year, but of course it's the usual access media, if you like. So what do? You do campaigns, you do some advertising, you do conferences, you do seminars, in-house. You put in place content sharing agreements with interested parties. You direct people to all the very good stuff that we've got on our website. So there's a lot of ways that we can do it. It's interesting you talk about that. I mean, we talk about warrants issued by banks, and banks obviously like those because they can charge a spread, and it's a proprietary product. But you need to bear in mind that if you look at securities assets held in Europe, we've got 1.3 trillion of them. So that's 46% of foreign holdings are held in Europe. So that means with that underlying, you're going to have exposure. If you've got exposure, you should be looking at options. So, if I was a purely speculative player, I would say, oh look, I can have fantastic leverage here, but obviously leverage is a two-edged sword. It's not perhaps just like in the US where you've got, a more defined range of speculative choices. In Europe, it's much wider. but I don't think that one is necessarily cannibalistic to the other. Some of the processing schema and protocols that were different, so this caused them a logistical heartache, if you like, but I haven't got any concrete examples in front of me. A lot of the time, because European market users are used to something which is structured around a futures market, sometimes they say, oh, the OCC methodology is very different. Well, of course it is. It's not a futures methodology, but that's just something that the OCC isn't going to become a futures exchange. So I don't think that's going to change. I think their internal flows will, I hope, become enhanced so that they can handle it more easily.